welcome to Virtual Day Trip to Wine Country. I'm Sam Kimball from New York Wine Events, and today we have a very special show. I'm really excited. You might notice that I am coming to you from the beautiful wine country in the state of Oregon. Today we are traveling across the U.S. to Oregon wine country. We'll be visiting the largest contiguous vineyard in Oregon's Dundee Hills wine region. So that is really cool. In our virtual tasting series, this is our first trip to the West Coast, and we are visiting Stoller Family Estate, which is an amazing award-winning maker of wines that are balanced and complex and delicious and consistently exceptional. The folks at Stoller pride themselves on producing elegant wines that really reflect the region and their specific area of the Dundee Hills. And you can learn all about those wines at stollerfamilyestate.com. That's Stoller, S-T-O-L-L-E-R, familyestate.com. I also want to give a shout out to Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir, anyone? Stoller's Pinot Noirs are absolutely fabulous. They're textured, they're silky, and they are great for aging, which is awesome. And for those of you who don't know, Oregon happens to be one of the world's greatest climates for growing the Pinot Noir grape. It's an awesome place for that particular wine style and that grape varietal. So we're in for a treat. As always, if you have questions during our session, we'll be going about 20-25 minutes. We'll be doing a tasting. Please put them in the chat module in Zoom, and we will tackle them in the latter portion of our talk. I should also, last but not least, mention that in the past, we have worked here at New York Wine Events with Stoller Family Estate at our events in past years. So we know them, we love them. And it's my privilege and pleasure today to welcome our guest speaker and guest host, winemaker at Stoller Family Estate, Melissa Burr. So great to have you, Melissa. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Sam. This is fantastic. And also, big thank you for representing the beautiful vineyard in your background. It doesn't quite work as well on my computer, and I just was outside and I was going to do this nice tasting out in the Oregon forest where I live here, but I have a pond and a duck and it won't stop making all this noise. So anyways, thanks for having me. I'm really happy.
Welcome. It's great to have you. And you know, as they say, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
It's a loud one. It's too loud to do this tasting. So last minute, here I am in the living room.
We still like your background. That's awesome. And of course, here in our state-of-the-art broadcast studio at New York Wine Events, we've got the whole state of Oregon and the vineyard behind us.
Love it.
So to get started, you guys are in the Dundee Hills area of Oregon. And many in our audience may be familiar with the Willamette, or did I say it correctly?
It's okay. Here's a good thing. Willamette, damn it. It's a, you know, you can't go wrong. It's a Willamette, damn it, and then you'll get it right.
The Willamette Valley is famous in the wine world. If you're a wine enthusiast, you may have heard of that area in Oregon. It's where a lot of Oregon wines come from. But there are other areas in Oregon, including Dundee Hills, where you are, that make fantastic and world-class wines. So tell us a little bit about what makes the Dundee Hills area different and unique in terms of growing grapes and making wine.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Willamette Valley is the northern part of the state of Oregon. It starts a little bit above Portland, Oregon, and it's a 200-mile long recognized AVA in the state of Oregon, and it goes all the way south to Eugene. A lot of you don't know where that is, and that's okay, but just know it's 200 miles. And within this 200-mile AVA, we've gone and parsed it up into these sub-AVAs, these growing regions that are recognized for being unique as a part of the Willamette Valley. So the Dundee Hills is in the Willamette Valley, where you're at here at Stoller Family Estate in the heart of Dundee Hills here in your picture, is southwest of Portland, about 45 minutes by car, just for reference. And what makes the Dundee Hills unique as an AVA is a few things. First of all, just to give you a visual perspective, if you were flying over the Willamette Valley and you were looking at the Dundee Hills from a helicopter, let's say, it looks like an island, an oasis of an island in the middle of this flat valley, which is the Willamette Valley. And to the west of our AVA Dundee Hills, we have the coastal foothills and mountains. So that really, those mountain ranges there take a lot of the storms and the cold air, kind of get stopped there. And then to the north of the Dundee Hills, there's another mountain called Shahala Mountain, which is where I'm at here at my house. It's about a half hour from the Stoller Vineyard. But that mountain range also catches storms. So what makes the Dundee Hills unique in a way then is that it has protection from these mountain ranges, and we have really warm nighttime growing temperatures, a little bit warmer than most other AVAs in our valley because of that. The other character about the Dundee Hills is that it has a lot of volcanic soil. That volcanic soil is one of the premium soils that we grow our Pinot Noir grapes and our wine grapes in general on and in the Willamette Valley. And the Dundee Hills is full of this volcanic soil, red clay, well-draining soil, and it can be quite deep, anywhere up to 6 feet plus.
Wow.
And the advantage there is that, one, this volcanic soil gives a signature flavor profile to the wine grapes, and two, having the depth makes it pretty easy then for these roots of these vines to get down and search for water. They don't struggle as much as they might in other areas. And so those are a couple things about the AVA. All of our wine grapes, for the most part, are grown on hillsides because that's where this volcanic soil is exposed. Anything below about 200 feet in the Willamette Valley in general is heavy, fertile, rich soil that has been washed in from so many floods tens of thousands of years ago, and it's too rich for growing grapevines. So in our area, that's one of the defining factors of the Willamette Valley wine grape growing for high quality wines, is it tends to be on hillsides. It's either in marine sedimentary soil, this lowest soil, which is blown in combination of volcanic and marine sedimentary, or it's volcanic for the most part. There's other soils too, but long answer for the question, that is the topography and some of the unique characters of the Dundee Hills. Flavor-wise, just to go out on that tangent a bit, what we're starting to see with Dundee Hills wines is Pinot Noirs specifically that are spicy, red fruited, and notably the tannins in the Pinot Noirs in general from the Dundee Hills tend to be really silky and kind of fine grained. We don't tend to find our wines having a lot of bramble or really grippy tannin. It's just not part of the soil and the kind of the terroir of the Dundee Hills. So that's it in a nutshell. And Stoller is right there in the middle of Dundee Hills on the southwest corner, and the vineyard's between 200 and 700 feet elevation, and the estate vineyard is one contiguous hillside that you're in right now with Heartbreak behind your head.
Yeah, I'll go back to that panoramic shot there. So when was the winery established? When was it founded?
Well, the property is part of a family. So Bill Stoller, the founder, proprietor, grew up farming on this estate, and he bought it from his family, from his cousins and his uncle in the early 90s. And he turned it into a vineyard in 95 by planting the first 20 acres on the estate, 10 of Pinot Noir and 10 of Chardonnay. And since then, he's continued to plant the estate, and now we're over 225 acres. We have some more going in, but it'll cap out about 250 at the estate. So it's grown quite a bit over the last 20
great.
years.
And what does that mean in terms of how many cases of wine do you produce at Stoller Family Estate?
From the whole estate, we are about 45,000 cases. We could do closer to, it's going to grow closer to 50 when our new plantings become viable and mature. So about that size is when we're going to cap out with the estate grown fruit for the Stoller brand.
And so for those who in the audience who are a little bit more, not as familiar with Oregon as they are with California or France, for example, what's the sort of the signature wines that are coming out of the region and then coming out of Stoller specifically? I know you make a wide variety of selections, but what's the region known for? What is Oregon's wine signature? So in New York State here, we have, not quite as many wineries, about 500 wineries versus 750 in Oregon. And the white wine grape and sort of signature wine of New York is Riesling, and the red wine grape and kind of unofficially is Cabernet Franc. What is it in Oregon?
Oregon is known for Pinot Noir, and that is what the majority of the entire state grows. It's, I believe, about 68% of the grapes produced are Pinot Noir. Second largest varietal that the state grows is Pinot Gris. And from there, it trickles down, and there's a lot of things we can grow well. And the state is diverse. The southern part of our state is actually quite a bit warmer than the northern part of the state. And Southern Oregon can grow a lot of bigger reds and varietals that we can't quite ripen in our cooler growing region in the Willamette Valley. But really, the Willamette Valley is the epicenter of where most of the grapes are grown, mostly because that's where the population is and that's where it started, so that's it. And so Pinot Noir for sure is Oregon's signature grape. And same with Stoller. It's the majority of what we grow, but we also grow a large amount of Chardonnay, which is kind of a unicorn in a sense in terms of what's grown in the state of Oregon. Of course, it's the world's #1 consumed and grown grape, but in Oregon, it only constitutes about 5 to maybe 6% of the whole state's growing and making them, but that's on the rise. And a lot of the reason why is because, again, specifically in the Willamette Valley, it's a cool growing region with heat units, cooler, longer temperate fall and summer as well. And these varieties, Chardonnay does beautifully. I mean, you think about the best whites in the world, and arguably, but it is white Burgundies, and we're not Burgundy, but we have a cooler climate like they do. So Chardonnay does well, and it's really catching on.
And the Pinot, and both the Pinot and Chardonnay grapes, but especially Pinot Noir, like the cool night air after a sunny day, yeah?
Yeah, Pinot Noir has thin skin, and it also is a medium to lighter body red wine. And I think what's so intriguing about Pinot is all the layers it can have, all the aromatics and the spices and the fruits and the whole gamut. But it really needs this temperate, slow and steady growing condition to do its very best. If it's too warm, it matures really quickly and it ends up being a lot of fruit, but not a lot else going on, not a lot of acidity. So it needs that just right. It's like the Goldilocks grape. Yep. So we're farming on the edge here. Like we're battling rains and conditions because we're in a cool climate. So it's not an easy grape. They call it the Heartbreak Grape for a reason.
It's a temperamental grape. It's the grape that goes to therapy.
It's the grape that gets you through therapy.
Exactly. So, and one other question about the winery, or a couple questions, and then we'll get to tasting. Is Stoller a 100% estate winery? In other words, the wines are made from only grapes and grown there on the property?
The majority of our wine grapes, of our wines, our Stoller brand, yes, is estate. But as we have grown, we work with other growers. And what really led to that, the #1 grape, the main wine that we do this with is our Pinot Noir Rosé. And that's because that wine has grown in volume tremendously. We started making Rosé, I started making it in 2005, and it was only 150 cases of Pinot Noir Rosé. And my boss, Bill Stoller, wasn't thrilled about me surprising him by making this in 2005.
Right.
Fast forward to now, we bottle about 10,000 cases of this Pinot Noir Rosé, and it's my favorite kind of I told you so, like secret thing with Bill. But we need to work with other growers because we simply don't have enough Pinot Noir to grow for that program and for all of our red wine Pinot Noirs we make as well.
Got it. Talk a little bit about sustainability. I know that's a big signature and tentpole for the philosophy and your process at Stoller.
It is. And I will say that that's something that I know that it's part of our state as well. Oregon is really really full of groups of people that are focused on sustainability, but specifically with Stoller Wine Group and Stoller Family Estate, we are sustainable in a lot of ways. You know, we are a B Corp business, and so B Corp is a certification for your business, holding you accountable to do better for the community and your employees. And it's kind of a never-ending story, but that's one. We farm sustainably in all of our vineyards that we farm. We farm live, which is low input viticulture and enology. It's a certification program in the Northwest here. We use low input sprays. We do a lot of cover crops. We also have environmentally friendly buildings. We built the very first gold LEED certified winery in the world in 2005 on our property. So that was really an accomplishment, and I was really proud to be part of that process. And what goes into that, it's a commercial certification for buildings, and it's a point system. It's very rigorous, and you have to have all these things, all these ingredients in your building to qualify, and we qualified at this gold level.
We're showing a picture of the facility, the winery building at a distance, which looks gorgeous.
Yeah, that picture, actually, you can see the low profile building. That's our second facility on the property. And it's that stainless steel building there that we do a lot of our larger volume in our rosés, and we have a lot of space and barrel storage. And behind it is actually not our winery, but it's the grain silo that has been on that farm for a long, long time before it was ever a vineyard. And Bill Stoller decided to preserve it, and it's really iconic for the property.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, certainly New Yorkers and East Coasters who are less familiar with Oregon, don't realize that Oregon is a vast state. It's very large, but it's also extremely rural. We're all familiar with Portland and all of the art and culture and creativity and Nike and everything that comes out of Portland, but the rest of the state, or a lot of the rest of the state, is extremely rural and agricultural and quite beautiful. And there's a lot of remote regions. Let's do a quick tour through the winery. I want to show the tank room. I know this wasn't your favorite picture, but I like to show where the sausage is made.
Yeah.
There you see on the left, you see the destemmer and the tanks, and this is the primary processing area when you first bring the grapes in, yeah?
It is, and this is in our LEED certified original winery that was built in 2005. And yes, this is where the grapes start their process into turning into wine. So this is apparently taken during harvest when we just got done cleaning up, it looks like. And the grapes come in from the vineyard and they go through a destemmer, which is on the left, and go into the tanks eventually and ferment. And this is a photo from harvest in the vineyard. So
I love this shot, because this is like a real, like, people are doing backbreaking work to get those grapes in from the vines and into that facility. And then of course,
intense. It's
eventually they get, the juice gets into the tanks. And then I love this, you have a wonderful barrel photo that, talk a little bit, briefly about French oak, and you age the Pinot Noir in French oak, yeah?
We do, and oak is such an interesting part of winemaking. It's like, I equate it to the spices that you're going to use for cooking, and you need to be very intentional with what you're using in your wine or your food. And so oak barrels, we source our oak from France because the type of oak that's grown there has the right grain structure. It's delicate enough for our more delicate wines, being Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, whereas American oak tends to be too aggressive, unfortunately, for our wines. So we work with these coopers or barrel makers in France, and each cooperage has its own philosophy and focus of how they toast their barrels. And within that company, there's different flavor profiles. So know your coopers and what kind of barrels you want is a journey that takes quite a long time. But we have close relationships with the barrel makers, and we want to make sure we don't have these barrels that put too much smoke and char in this delicate wine, or green characters. And we're pretty judicious with the use of our new barrels. So barrels don't have all that flavor coming out of them after 4 or 5 years of using them. They're more, we call them neutral. But the first couple of years, you get a lot of those spices. So yes, we do age in oak barrels.
And before we start tasting, which we should do, and get there, because I know everybody's excited about the 3 wines today. Is it possible to come visit when we're all not on quarantine and lockdown, or is it possible to come visit in Dundee Hills at Stoller Family Estate? And
Absolutely. Of course, I'll say, and I wish you could all come right now. It's always a little strange when you taste wines and you're not tasting with people. But beside that, yes, we have an absolutely stunning property to share and a tasting room that's won a lot of accolades for being top tasting room. It's so beautiful. A lot of it is you're looking up at the vineyard from our tasting room. It's really open and airy and expansive, and we put a lot of energy into hospitality. We've got a phenomenal team of people that take care of you when you come, and we're really family oriented. We allow people to have their children in. We even allow dogs on leashes, and it's just a really special environment because we have these beautiful intentional wines that we farm and make and we share. But I feel like Stoller's done a really good job at creating a very welcoming environment, and because of that, we've become quite popular. So I would absolutely encourage you to come visit when we're not on lockdown.
And just talking logistics, if you fly into Portland, because most of our audience is in New York or East Coast, they fly
Right.
into Portland. How far is it from, when you land in Portland to get
Right.
the
To
hill?
us.
You guys.
You have to really budget about 2 hours. I mean, if you don't have any traffic, you could get there in an hour and 10 minutes, maybe even an hour. But, Portland, like everywhere, is growing. So you really want to give yourself that time. And ideally, if you do this trip, and when you do, I'll say, I would recommend staying a couple nights out in the wine country area, either in McMinnville or Dayton or Newburgh, just because you're going to want to visit a couple wineries and relax. It's just a long enough drive going back into Portland that it can be a lot, unless you get maybe someone to drive you or something like that. But that really allows you to have a good experience in wine country, and then maybe spend a couple days in Portland as well.
Yeah, and I think that, there's so much attention that gets paid to Napa and Bordeaux or Provence, and going on a wine tasting trip or to a region. Certainly there's plenty of people who go to Oregon, but it's still a little bit of a hidden gem compared to the big guns out there. And I think it's really well worth it. So what wines are we going to taste today, Melissa?
We have 3 wines that we're going to try today, and we're going to try a Chardonnay, and I think we can start there. Before we get into this, I just want to make one note about, just to follow up with what you just said about Oregon and being this kind of hidden gem, is that our state only produces 1% of the wines grown and made domestically in the United States. So California is 95, 96%. Even New York grows more wine per gallon than Oregon. So we're not very big. So there's that, but it's been tremendous to see the amount of tourism and people visiting. So yes, I think it is a gem, but we're small. We're a small growing region, really.
I will say, and for any of the viewers who are in our group of amazing customers who come to our events, I should add that in one of our recent events, we're in our VIP suite, where normally you have these famous French wines and famous California and some Italians and others. We had an Oregon Pinot Noir that was knock your socks off. It was, I don't remember which one it was, but it was notable that our sommelier and our programming team had, basically put that in. It was not something that I said we have to do. It was something that got put in, and it was received really, really well. And I think that that's a little bit of a sub story here, that Oregon, may only do 1% of domestically produced wines, but it's coming up and has been for some time in a major way. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
So I have, for everybody watching, I have the Chardonnay bottle on my screen, and Melissa's going to walk us through it, give us the tasting notes and a couple of ideas for foods to pair it with. We're also going to talk in a moment about where you can get this and how you can get it shipped to your table.
Absolutely. So Chardonnay, we make several different styles of Chardonnay. And I mentioned briefly that we grow a lot. I told you we only have a little bit of Chardonnay in the state of Oregon, about 5%. Stoller has over 60 acres planted to Chardonnay. And so that's a lot for the state. That's a big contingent of acres. And so within our profile, our portfolio, you have a couple different styles. This is our Dundee Hills Chardonnay, named after the AVA that we grow in. And this is a Chardonnay that's intended to be very fresh, aromatic, have a lot of acidity. It doesn't see much oak at all, if any. So this Chardonnay is a stainless steel fermented Chardonnay, which really encourages that freshness. You're not going to get buttery or oaky. You're going to get bright and clean and citrus-based flavors. And this leads the Chardonnay, in my opinion, to be one of our most versatile offerings. I think our wines are versatile in general, just being a cool climate growing area. But the Chardonnay, because it's not oaky or buttery or too anything, and it's very acid driven. Acid's such it's required for quality wines, but also for food pairings. This Chardonnay goes with about anything. It doesn't have a lot of tannin either, so that's another reason why it's so versatile. It goes with seafood, oysters, Dungeness crab, chicken, salads, cheeses, any kind of real rich, creamy cheeses. It's a good starter. It's going to age beautifully, even though it's you don't have to, but it's a really beautiful wine.
What about the everyday casual foods? We're all doing a lot of takeout and a lot of curbside pickup. So what's a good one right now?
I think you could do about anything. I think this will go good with pasta dishes. It'll go good with any kind of salads that you might need takeout. Even you can span into some of the Thai, a little bit of spice, like that, chicken dishes, roasted chicken. And I think you and I were talking, like one of my number one pairings is, because I think it's so versatile, is really good popcorn. You could do all sorts of different things with any of these wines, but just being in the time we're in now, this wine will go with so many different things in your takeout or casual meals you may have. You don't really have to overthink it because of the inherited quality of this wine. I think it'd be fun just to experiment with it.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, let's move on. Should we go to the rosé?
Sure.
And this is the one that you got some raised eyebrows from your boss.
Oh, I sure did. Yeah, I was not quite sure if I was going to still have my job at that time, but I do. Still do.
You thought you were giving into the rosé craze.
Yeah, but that was before there was a craze, and it was nice to have the time to actually make rosé since 2005 because our style has changed over the years, and we really locked into what works for us about 7 years ago. And I'm glad that I had the time to experiment before the big tsunami of rosé hit the whole United States, you know?
Yep.
So this is a Pinot Noir rosé, and it's made from 100% Pinot Noir. And a lot of people ask me, well, how does that work out? So we farm this Pinot Noir, and basically we were treating Pinot Noir like a white grape. So we farm it differently than we would for our red wine, and we harvested it earlier than we would for a Pinot Noir red wine because we want a lot of natural acidity and we want a bit lower total sugar because we don't want our Pinot Noir rosé to have high alcohol. So that's one thing. We pick these grapes and we press them immediately. So we're getting the juice of this Pinot Noir rather than fermenting the Pinot Noir grapes on the skins with the berries to make red wine. So that's how we start. We're really specific in the vineyard and how we set this up. And we ferment this with different yeast strains that like to produce a lot of aromatic compounds. So that's very important for a rosé to smell beautiful and have a lot going on, to have a lot of acidity and to not have tannin, I think is really important for our style as well. So we're not spending time on skins here or to get a lot of color. We have a little color, but it's quite pale pink. And so we have grown a lot of this. And like I had mentioned, we do work with partner vineyards to source the Pinot Noir for this program. And it's something that we just came out with the 2019. 2019 was a bit cooler of a harvest time for us in Oregon compared to average. And the resulting wines, I think, are very floral, including this rosé. And it's pale pink, floral, some strawberry. It's got so much freshness and it's tasting nice. I think it's a great thing for quarantine. because it goes with everything, and it's
Everything.
springtime now, and it's great. So it's just in time to enjoy this wine.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, also the great thing about the rosé too is that you can just pour it before dinner and have it, you know, as something to enjoy. And maybe you have a piece of cheese, maybe you don't. It's its own thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes with so many different foods, and people are starting to enjoy it year round also. Rosé has, I think, an unfortunate stereotype kind of stigma about only the new vintage is what you want to be drinking of a rosé in general, whether it's from Provence or Oregon or anywhere else. And I think that's unfortunate because rosé, sure, you might not want to put it down in your cellar for 20 years. You don't need to. It's meant to be fresh and lively, but there's nothing wrong with a 2-year-old rosé. If anything, sometimes they can be so beautiful because they're still fresh and acid driven, but they don't go bad. So poor rosé kind of has a little bit of a bad reputation that way. But hey, I mean, it is just part of the education process, right?
Less and less. All right,
Yeah.
let's go now for the grand finale of the wine.
Finale.
Of course, the signature, the Pinot Noir. And if you're watching and you have not had a really good, like this Stoller Pinot Noir from Oregon, you are missing something special.
Yeah, well, thank you. And yes, Pinot Noir from Oregon is definitely something special. And this Pinot Noir is our Dundee Hills Pinot Noir, again, named after our AVA that we are in. It's the largest Pinot Noir that we produce from Stoller Vineyard, from Stoller Family Estate. And this is my favorite wine that we make, I think, because in this Pinot Noir, you are getting Pinot Noir grapes that are planted in all the different years that Stoller was planted. You get the old vines, you get some young vines, you get a whole bouquet of all the different clones of Pinot, which make a nuanced difference in the way Pinot Noir tastes, but there's a difference. And you're getting the different elevations also. So in a way, you really get a great snapshot of this 225 acre contiguous hillside in the Dundee Hills in this wine. And the way that we approach making this Pinot Noir, the Dundee Hills Pinot Noir, this is 2018 that you have on your screen there, is to make a Pinot that's balanced. We're not looking to add too many new oak barrels to it or pick it extremely early or pick it extremely late. We just want to show off the site and be transparent with the winemaking. Of course, we want to make the best wine possible, so we're not just sitting back doing nothing. But the point is, this wine is very, very reflective of what the Pinot Noir tastes like from the Dundee Hills, what it tastes like from this vineyard, since you get this mosaic of the whole estate. And then you really can get the vintage through these wines too, because Oregon is very different every year to year, and vintage plays a big hand in how the Pinot Noir tastes. And I think if you follow Stoller and start drinking our Dundee Hills Pinot Noir over the years, you'll really start to see that thread of what vintage does.
That's awesome. So now, big question. How do we buy these wines? And are there any deals or special incentives we can offer the New York Wine Events audience to take advantage and get these Stoller wines to their table and start enjoying them?
Well, I would love that to happen. And yes is the answer. So first off, you can go to our website, stollerfamilyestate.com. And we're doing a promo because of your generosity in having me on today. And so thank you so much for that too. We're doing a promo code North NW Wine Events. It doesn't have to be all caps, but
okay.
NW Wine Events. If you type that in, you can get 3 bottles for $10 flat rate shipping, which is a good deal because it costs more than that, obviously, to ship to you. But it would be really great if you're interested to get a bottle of each of these wines that I talked about, and you can try them out, or anything else you wanted to add on. So yeah, I would love that, and always welcome to have everybody come out when we can do that again safely. And I'm looking forward to coming to New York again. I love New York. I'm from New York. I was born in Nyack, actually. I was very young in Oregon. But I used to have an aunt on Long Island, and I used to go every summer, and I love coming out. So I will come visit you, Sam, and hit you up for a wine tour.
Excellent. Well, we would love that. And I'm actually, our broadcast center is here on Eastern Long Island in Suffolk County, about 15 minutes from the North Fork. So
Nice.
we've been interacting with and having fun with connecting in the quarantine time with wineries out here, but also honestly around the country. And it's so wonderful to have you guys as part of our broadcast today and featured, because it gives the audience a window into another part of the world that makes incredible world-class wine. And if I had, one wish, it's that, and my audience knows I'm always pushing people, try new wines, try new grape varieties, expand your palate. We all love Bordeaux from France. We all love Cabernet Sauvignon from California, but there's lots more out there. And I think it's also a really interesting time now in the wine industry that you have regions like Oregon that are really becoming prominent and producing incredible wine that gives people an opportunity to expand. And most people don't know there's thousands of grape varieties, not just 6 or 10 or 20. I mean, they're way more than Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. There's all kinds of stuff all over the map. So we have one question this is a really good question. I want to applaud Brock. This comes from Brock. Is there a store in Manhattan that has a good selection of your wines from Stoller?
Oh, that's a good question, Brock. Oh, I haven't been nearly enough. I know there is, but I don't know who. I can find out for you. So, yes.
Tell you what, Brock, send us an email at info@newyorkwineevents.com and we will direct you to the store. I know that Melissa and Jenna, who's one of her colleagues and works on the team, we can answer that question. Give us a couple hours and we'll get you a place.
Yeah. And hey, we want to be in every bar in New York, and so does every other producer. So we're always open to being suggested to be brought in that as well. But yes, we'll follow up with you, Brock. That's a great question.
Excellent. We have one other question. This one is from Elizabeth. Is it true you also make canned Oregon wines?
Yes, we do. So Stoller Family Estate is one of 5 brands that is now part of what's called the Stoller Wine Group. And Canned Oregon is a brand as well that we launched about 1.5 years ago. And we make 5 different wines. We have a sparkling rosé and a still rosé, a Pinot Noir, and a Pinot Gris under, I guess it's 4, under the Canned Oregon lineup. And yeah, that's something that is gaining a lot of traction in general, as this canned, it's half a bottle of wine. It's 375 mils. But just the portability and the recyclability and using a wine like that and having it when you're camping or when you're at a pool or a resort or somewhere that doesn't allow glass and the whole thing. So yeah, that's part of what we do. And you can find out more. We have a website for Canned Oregon. It's literally cannedoregon.com. You can get to it through, I think, our Stoller page as well, but we also are on Instagram. And so yeah, we do Canned Oregon wines, and they're all like it says, they're all Oregon-based grapes. It's quality wines in a can, and that's another defining thing, is we take that very seriously. It's the quality, and we have such a nice gamut of vineyards to source from here in our state. So we have the opportunity to make a wine like this.
Well, I'll tell you what, when we're off of shutdown, lockdown, I'm coming out.
Yes, you should.
My first stop
Please do.
Stoller.
Yes.
I've been threatening to come out now for a couple of years, and I just, haven't made it. And, what's happening in current events these days really makes all of us put things in perspective. And frankly, those trips, and I do make them occasionally, are really important if you're in our world of learning about and discovering wines and enjoying them. So.
Agree. Well,
Melissa, thank you so much for being a part of our broadcast today. It was awesome. We will see you soon. Let's do another one sometime in the near future where maybe we choose a couple wines and we basically pair them and connect them with a specific meal. And do
I love that.
Food elements.
I'm in. Let's do this. I will look forward to that, Sam. That sounds like a great plan. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. Stay safe.
Yeah, you too. Cheers.
Take care.